Good morning and welcome to the CADclass podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Jake.
We're going to show off your projects this week, talk a little bit about some new AI updates that have come out recently. And
some of the new AI tools, which are actually kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
Blowing my mind. So I've been thinking a lot about AI, Jake, just to go on a tangent right at the very beginning here for a second.
No, you can't tangent at the beginning. That's the main story.
Oh yeah, that's true. I've been super curious about what AI is going to actually do, how it there's the hype cycle of AI, and then there's what it actually does to improve your workflows. And I gotta say, after a couple new announcements, and we'll tease this for a little bit later, after the couple new announcements yesterday, I think Google, and 2 days ago, OpenAI, something like this, I am officially blown away. And we're going to show off some of that functionality to you guys on the podcast here.
And then some of that functionality we're going to be incorporating into edition 2 of the book to help you out actually do CAD. I think we said it a few times, is that we're both you and I, we talk about it a lot, but we're still not 100% convinced that right now we're at the phase where it's like type to get something and then boom, a very complex model is done. A simple model or a bolt or a component, yeah, that's there. That's definitely handy. Is it faster than just searching through a little library for it? Probably not. But for a complex model, we're still not convinced. But again, we'll probably eat those words in a year or 6 months.
I think we will. Yeah.
But there's definitely new additions in AI with actually helping you in the same way as what we do, where we try and say, hey, we have a Discord, we've got, this weekly podcast where you guys can post any questions you want, all that good stuff. And having that as an additional tutor is fantastic. So
yeah. So teasy.
Definitely one of the avenues we want to go
into. Really quickly, a little bit of housekeeping. Cornelia Connie is most likely going to join us next week and talk about some of her amazing inventions. She got the green light from her boss. She's in Germany, which is a lot of fun. But she got the green light from her bosses to talk about the projects she's actually designing. So that's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
We're going to have, hopefully if we can get it all worked out, Connie will be on the pod next week. Good morning, Derry. Good morning, Cadence. Good morning, Sam. It's really excellent to have you all.
Derry, respond to my message on Discord.
Yeah. Derry, we've got some questions for you regarding drone development, because teaser, iteration 2 of the CADclass Fusion 360 or Fusion book, excuse me, will have a drone project.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun.
Little prototype drone we're going to be working with.
I did.
Oh, good. All right. Oh, so it's me. We're potentially working with a few very large companies that you guys have definitely worked with to see if we can get a little business relationship going and actually, make some physicality stuff to it, which is always our favorite thing. CAD is never as fun, but as soon as you hold the thing in real life, then it's a million times more fun, as we all know. And so we're going to be pushing that even further for the next edition.
Totally. So Jake, let's shall we show off some projects?
Let's do that, because I've got so much stuff on my desk to show off for this pod, and I want to show off your guys' stuff first. So let's jump into our Discord. We've got a bunch of really rad things, as always, but actually, I think especially more creative this week, which is my favorite things to show off.
Love the creativity.
Man of the hour, Mr. Derry. I'm showing off a Barbie cake topper.
And I think earlier, so Derry earlier had the miniature scaled down little Barbie closet.
Oh yes,
right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, shout out
little
to you,
wardrobe.
Derry. You're winning major daughter points. I'm imagining right here, and you're also getting CADclass points. So this is you're double dipping,
which are worth much more. But I absolutely love this. What a kick-ass project. Little cake toppers like this are so, as I'm sure you guys can figure out, not all that difficult to make, not all that difficult to 3D print, and they are so fantastic. They are such a fun addition to kind of add to any party, because obviously it's infinitely customizable even. I absolutely love this project.
And
I've done custom cake toppers for a couple family members, and they love it every single time.
Fun fact: one of the early product ideas that we had, that we toyed around with, was those little things that you stick in bakeries
Oh yeah, that's right.
We
Yeah.
talked about
Planning
possibly
on making a bunch of like
customizable top.
very, very specific ones. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because we realized, as a lot of people do with 3D printing, that the customizability is amazing, and you can do anything,
Yeah.
and that allows you to do so many more creative things than put the generic, boring little toppers on there.
Hmm.
But we didn't pursue that, thankfully.
Nah. Continuing onward, this is one from Solar. Um, when I saw that, I completely forgot to read the description. I didn't exactly know what it was for. Just a vacuum air hose. Oh, there we go. Little pop up, and I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Completely didn't read this is for a desktop CNC, which makes it so much more fun. But then actually having it installed as little air ducts for this is so rad. And this reminded me of one of the projects that I really wanted to make back when Josh and I were at a workshop, and I never got to. And okay, so if any of you guys have workshops, whether it be wood shops, CNC shops, anything like that, ventilation is often a really important thing. And so being able to have a vacuum extractor outside your workshop and then hoses running in can be very, very expensive. And having little gates, blast gates, they call to open and close to direct suction, that it can get pretty expensive pretty quickly. And so having just a single hose like this, you can kind of plug into different tools very, very quick, often quicker, but really nice. And one of the projects that I saw on Reddit that I've wanted to make for so long actually looked almost identical to this. But instead of drilled holes that you can see that kind of makes it a permanent fitting, it actually had magnets to it and this kind of really simple interlocking system. And I just saw this guy on Reddit, and he just made a bunch of these. So as soon as he was done with this, you could just snap it onto another tool, snap it onto that tool, and it just magneted together. And I was like, that's genius. That is so unbelievably clever. Because what people don't realize is the very ends of these metal coils, they tear away and they get so rippy and gummy and they suck so quickly. And so by adding on this
No
little end
pun
piece that just kind of snaps into
intended.
place. Side note, and I didn't know this until we almost started a fire, because you're pulling sawdust at pretty high speeds, little particles, over one of these plastic tubes that's got a metal coil on it. It builds up a huge amount of static in it, and it can actually cause a fire. So please do be careful. So you'll see some professional workshops, they actually have a little wire that runs all the way down this, and it's literally a grounding wire, because without it, you can literally cause sawdust fires, which are immensely terrifying. Like little particulates of sawdust that that just meter lighter, just boom, explode. Absolutely terrifying. So yeah, solar probably not going to be an issue for this. For
Small
what I
scale.
imagine is a pretty small amount of material coming through, but
Yeah.
for the large scale ones, ooh, that gets scary. But this is fantastic. Do you remember that, Josh? Do you remember like we had a fire that almost got started?
Oh, I feel like that's like there's always things like that. Actually, recently, Human Made. You didn't get to visit Human Made, did you? The
No, no,
makerspace in San
no.
Francisco. It caught fire. Caught fire.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it's temporarily shut down right now. Like the
Oh
thing
my
caught
gosh.
fire. Yeah, they don't even know what exactly caused it. But what was surprising to me is that it wasn't always on fire. That these workshops are just full of dust. Like it's
Yeah.
amazing. Like we had welders next to a wood shop, and it's like you would
Mhm.
think it was a big shop that we were working in, but man,
Yeah.
I was surprised there weren't fires basically all the time. Like it's just
One thing that I do see that people make, especially for workshops, that I thought, oh, that's a great idea, is like a little hutch that you can put on the ground and actually suck anything you sweep into it. And I'm like, oh my god, that's genius. I don't have to bend over and kind of suck everything up. You just kind of sweep it into this big funnel and zoop, it's off. And then somebody said, "Oh, I did this, and I accidentally swept a little screw into it that sparked just a little bit, caught some of the sawdust, and it basically started to smolder for like 3, 4 days, and it almost burnt down my shop." I was like, "Oh my god!" So
didn't
yeah, if you have
didn't
one of those, get rid of it.
I think the
It's
same
more
thing
dangerous than
happened.
you thought.
I think the same thing happened to Maddie from Unnecessary Inventions. I think his shop caught fire recently.
Oh,
I
God,
could be
so
wrong
scary.
about that, but I wanna say, yeah, I wanna say something happened, and actually what ended up being worse than the fire, apparently it was smoldering under a desk, and it set the sprinklers
Oh,
off. It set the sprinklers off, but the sprinklers didn't stop because it was still smoldering. So they
oh
had,
my
like,
God.
a foot of water, and it just ruined
Jeez.
everything, like, oh, what a
Oh
disaster.
God. That's awful.
Anywho,
Stay safe. Anyway, workshops are
yeah.
dangerous.
This is
Um,
rad. I want to talk about this one.
yes.
This is again, this is part of the SAC Innovation Program. I hope some of those folks are in here listening, and especially him. So um, I know you're not going to know what you're looking at by looking at this, but this is a distance controlled actuated sensor that when you hover your hands over that piece in the very back there's that strip. You see the red strip in the
Mhm.
back.
Yep.
Each one of those has a distance sensor. I think it's just infrared. When you hover your hand over it, it actuates it and it actually plays the music. So you can hover your
So
hands
awesome.
over all these different parts and it will play the music as you're
That's
hovering your hands
amazing.
over it. And I just like, I love immersive experiences. I love museums that play with your senses and perceptions. And like, this is the thing that
Mhm.
really geeks me out. And I went in there and I was like giddy. I was smiling like a child. I was like,
That's fantastic.
this is like way, way, way too much fun. Uh, I want to rock, like, I would love to have a full on like air band because he wants to incorporate more parts to it. Like,
Oh, I
I
bet.
think he wants to incorporate like drums and like all kinds of stuff. But imagine like how that changes how you play music by just hover. Loved it.
That's awesome.
Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. This is the sort of innovation stuff that it's like blows my mind. Like, this is
Mm,
really, really, really cool.
yeah, this is fantastic. This is Collected Cookie. I'm not sure if I've met them, but oh my gosh, I want them to post so much more stuff.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, in a very much less cool thing, I 3D printed a Cybertruck, a thing that I've literally been wanted for like 4 years, and I love it. I love this whole thing. That was just my little blurb. I've been meaning to make this for so long. Finally have it on my desk. It's on my shelf of interesting things, which I think everyone should have in their house. Like just a shelf of these are my most interesting talking points. Like you know how everyone has like coffee desk kind of situation. They put art books on there where they go, I'm more sophisticated than I actually am. That kind of situation. I think you should get rid of that. Just have a shelf where you put all of your most interesting trinkets full of actually interesting stories. And then and then anybody that comes over, you just go, oh, would you like a scotch near the shelf of interesting things? But then you go, oh, I got this is Mumbai. Just collectively put everything on one sturdy shelf, and that's where it should be. That's my new law that I'm gonna have.
Van Vliet says, I have Thag. What's Thag?
I have
I don't
no
know.
idea.
I don't know what that is. All right. Tell us
Let me
what it is in the
check
chat.
that. But yeah, yeah, shelf of interesting thing. That's exactly what we should have. Um, Continuing on, Mr. Spitfire makes some progress on the RC float plane design. This is so rad. I have yet to really kind of dig deep into RC stuff. I've been meaning to do it for so long, and yeah, and we're starting to we'll talk about it in a little bit, but we're starting to get a little bit deeper into some electronics projects that we'll chat about in a little bit because we've got a big event coming up and we want to kind of make some cool stuff for it. But Richard, this is awesome. I can't wait to see where this leads you. That's gonna be
Big shout out.
fantastic.
Yeah, we have a couple people that so I just finished up my CNC class at Sac City College here. And
Nice.
one of my students, or I should say two of my students, built the actual 2-foot, 2-scale Saturn V
Yes.
rocket, except with a couple modifications. And one
Mhm.
modification is that they actually added the spot to put the parachute in the top. And then they also they increased the size of the fins because there's not going to be enough
Mhm.
power with a traditional rocket motor to keep this thing straight. So
Yeah, those
they ran
little
it through a
fins on the
simulator
rocket.
program to do it. Yeah, the little fins on the rocket mean it won't fly very well, but
Yeah.
so we're going to get some footage and film it. But for those of you who are listening, I want to see some 2-foot replicas of the rocket. I want to see you guys print this thing out like to scale. And Jake, I know you and I talked about trying to make it look like the original
Mhm.
Saturn V
That's
rocket. So
my
you were
plan.
talking about maybe putting some decals on it, and
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys can see this. So this is my in this frame. There's something called a logo type, where it's essentially in design. You've got, or especially graphic design, you'll go through a bunch of series of prototypes for different logos or different stylized word marks. And this is this is NASA's that they made. Oh gosh, I think in the 60s or 70s, not sure. And I just really dig it. And there's a whole little blurb above it about it's like, oh, it needs to be exactly this height, which is in proportion to the width, and that changes slightly in this angle and this radii, and it's all just mathematical. So it means you can blow it up infinitely big or infinitesimally small, and it will always stay the exact same ratio. Super super cool. I love that kind of stuff. And I was just kind of thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got all this blank space right there. I need to print out this rocket, but in all the individual colored segments as it would be in real life.
Yes. Yes.
When I was in Houston at the NASA museum, if you ever come to Texas, please check it out. It is a total geek fest. I love that museum. But there's like an additional extra cost, which was quite a lot a few years ago. But it was like, oh, you get to go behind the scenes and actually go into the container where the very tip of the Saturn V rocket is. It's gigantic. Just the little tiny bits that actually got recovered. It's gigantic, and I didn't get to see it, and I really want to. And well, we're refilming our course, and Josh, it may be a business expense. I don't know, to go and see it, to fly to Houston and then film it. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that is definitely on my list. I want to see that so much. But that's going to be launching next week. So hopefully Josh is going to get some really fantastic footage of that, and we'll have a Josh video coming out soon.
Yeah, we might have a couple. We might have a couple Josh videos coming out soon.
Ooh!
So
because Josh got a fancy new lens. Ooh la la. Speaking of all of that, we just published a video on Friday that blew up in small YouTube scale.
Yeah,
it did really well.
Blew up. We did. We did
a
lot of views
for
us. Yeah.
Well, that I'm really excited about. But it's all about different threading cut-off systems that you can have for nuts and bolts. I had a ton of fun making this. I had a ton of fun testing this. And this has been on my desk for like weeks, and I've just been fiddling with it and messing around with it. And I absolutely love messing with this thing. This is so much fun to play around with. And I can't even remember where I saw this. It may have been on Instagram, but there's some celebrity, I'm not quite sure who it was, who got really into 3D printing, really into CAD, and then he made this file of essentially just a fidget spinner, but it was a gear a nuts that went along a thread, and it had two end caps, flicking it, and it just went back and forth. It was just really fun to fiddle with. He basically just made a video about how he's getting just slightly better every single iteration to make the print takes less material, faster print, stronger, better CAD, less support material, yada yada yada. And it was just really nice. But then because he's got some celebrity backing to it, he was like showing videos of like all of these very, very famous people that we all know about, just kind of messing with it, like in green rooms in the back, just like playing around with it, going, "Oh, this is great." And I remember seeing that, going, "That's so dumb." Meanwhile, I'm fiddling with this.
Maybe that becomes another giveaway that we do, Jake.
I think
what about printing those out as giveaways? I think those would be a lot of fun.
I don't know. These are really fun. I do still like the Nautilus gears.
I like them too, but I'm saying maybe some variety. So if you get inspired, I need to print one of those as well.
Yeah.
Even when you're playing with it right now, I'm pretty sure I need to do that.
Yeah, definitely. But because that video, we are, well, not officially, we're still waiting for it. But we are officially monetized through YouTube. Yay! That nobody really cares about. Woo!
Yeah.
And we're officially over 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. So massive thank you to everyone here and all the people that come back week after week. Couldn't have done it without you. Really appreciate it. Next one is the big 3,000, the big 4,000, on and on and on.
Yep.
We've got so many really fantastic projects coming down the line that we want to show you, that we want to educate you on. 3D printing, CAD, electronics, robotics, all that good stuff coming down the line very, very soon. And we're just really excited. So a big thank you to all of you guys. Really appreciate it. All right, Josh, I think we want to talk about our special projects that we're going to be bringing.
We do want to talk a little bit about the special project, and it ties into the discussion after that as well.
I agree. Yeah, we'll leave. Yeah, we've got notes. It's all right. So in next month, oh gosh, next month, we are going to be at Open Source, which is the Maker YouTube convention that was started last year by William Osman, which I'm sure most of you guys know about. But it's got every single Maker YouTuber that you can imagine: Christopher Reeves, Alan Pan, Mark Rober, Adam Savage. The list goes on and on and on. Maker's Muse, I Like to Make Stuff, just a Electro Boom. Oh my god, Peter Streepel. We saw everyone there last time. It was fantastic. CNC Kitchen flew from Germany. Maker's Muse came from Australia. It was rad. We were literally just kind of walking around, and then Joseph Prussia was behind us watching a BattleBot competition. We were just like, the hell is going on? It was fantastic. And so this is coming around this year as well. So it's happening in a month. If you do want to come, I cannot recommend it enough. As a Maker YouTube nerd, it was a blast. It was so much fun. Everybody there was making projects and showing off all the fantastic stuff they've made. It was a blast. I cannot recommend it enough. They said it's going to be 2 or 3 times as many people coming to show off their projects, which is going to be amazing. And so we are also going to be there. Ton of fun. It's in San Francisco. Last time that when I think we barely had any subscribers. We had this young kid who was, I think, in high school.
Yep.
And just kind of he was walking past you, did a double take, and then went, "Josh Manley?" And he went, "Yeah." And he went, "From CADclass?" "Yeah." Ran over to me and said, "Dude, he knows who we are." And then we got a picture, and it was so cool. And he was just a kid that was like in a robotics club in high school, and he was using our course to make all of his projects. And I'm like, that's the coolest thing in the universe.
That was the first person who had ever recognized us in public that we didn't already know.
I know. We didn't get his name, but yeah, we've got a picture of him.
Totally.
So excited. So if any of you guys are coming to Open Source this year, and you see us, we'll be walking around in our normal CADclass attire. We've got a couple projects we're bringing just to show off. Nothing huge, small stuff. But if you do come, if you're the first person to meet us, I'm going to give you a 3D printed, Luke's Return of the Jedi lightsaber 3D printed model. I'm going to have this in my backpack.
I would like to make a slight modification to that, Jake.
Sure.
The only modification I will say to that is you need to say, "May the Force be with you," so that we know that you came up and you had that intent. So I don't just want to give to the first person that recognizes us, but the first person who, and we'll share this on Discord. We obviously have this on the pod. We'll talk about it in all our channels. But if you're the first person to come up to us and say, "May the Force be with you," that would be the slight modification I would make. Because otherwise somebody's going to come up and be like, "Hello," and then we're going to be like, "Bang, lightsaber."
There you go.
I want them to be a part of the community. That would be amazing.
All right.
And maybe we go home and we're like, "Well, nobody recognized us." Blah, blah.
That's fine. Then each of us can have one.
May the CAD be with you.
May the CAD be with you.
Baby. That's freaking ridiculous. And PC Van Vliet, Mr. Mitnick, really quickly here said, "Are you guys going to do more interviews about CAD at Open Source this year?" I think we are. I think we will. I don't know exactly what we'll do, but we booked the hotel directly across from all the makers because I plan to harass them if possible and say, "Hey, we're going to stick microphones in their faces." This is what we did last year. We just stuck microphones in their faces and we asked questions that we hadn't thought too much about. But yeah, I would like to.
Yeah.
And Jake,
it was a blast meeting everyone last year. We got to interview 3D printing nerd Joel, who, by the way, is huge. I think he's like 6'7".
No, he's
like,
not
I'm already
tall.
6 foot.
He's not that tall.
I'm 6'5".
I
was craning my neck. He was tall, and he was a super duper nice guy. All of them are really, really nice. I feel like there's like a nice kind of levelness to YouTubers where like they know they're not international movie celebrities. None of them have like a chip on the shoulder. They are all super duper nice and super duper like, "Oh, of course we can take a picture. Of course I can sign this. Of course we can do an interview." They're all incredibly nice. So a big thank you to all of them if they ever see this. But we also have a much bigger project that we are going to be scrambling to finish. As some of you guys may know that have worked through the project, one of the projects near the end of the book is to recreate HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of my most favorite films of all time. Super chilling, evil character that I love. I absolutely love that character. And it's just a really simple little model on purpose. And we recreate it in CAD. It's really, really accurate, which I always like to do. Proper application is pretty huge for me, as if you didn't already know that. And but it's always been one of those projects that kind of stayed in the virtual world, and we want to bring that out. And Josh had a meeting with one of our YouTube friends, Mr. Vault, and he wanted to show, or he actually gave us a really fantastic idea, and that is, why don't you just make it in real life? And
Yeah, no, no, we're still
That's
streaming. Yeah, we're good.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry,
If
guys.
you're
I just
looking
saw
at the comments.
I just saw in
Yeah,
the
we saw the
comments
comment that
stream dead.
maybe our stream had died there for a second. It didn't, in fact, die, at least not according to Derry. So I think we're still good.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so we I have been wanting to have a HAL 9000 in my hands since I was a child when I saw this film, and it has always just been, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm ever gonna have a character that has the glowing red eye that I can talk to and will talk back. Even if I can, it's gonna be lame. And now the AI is just so ubiquitous and so easy to use. Now it's like
So here's
relatively easy for complete electronics newbie to
well, we're
actually
gonna
figure this out.
well, maybe we're gonna find out. But Jake, you and I, we're gonna talk a little bit about AI here in a second.
Mhm.
In addition to what we're talking about with HAL 9000. But one of the things that I thought the interesting frame around making HAL 9000 was that we were going to use AI to build AI that was in a movie in
Yeah,
2001.
it's
And we're actually
it's
going to
so
try to get it
cyclical.
as close as we possibly can. So we've already ordered the Raspberry Pi, and I've already started to do the research. And I will tell you, I had my mind blown by ChatGPT, and this is going to lead
Mhm.
some into that as well. So we are going to try to make an actual, real working version of HAL that we can
That you can
show
talk
off,
to and talks
that people
back.
can ask questions to, and it hopefully answers both in the voice and in the style that the original HAL answered. And Jake,
And with the glowing
those
eye.
those are the interviews I want to do this year. I want people
Yes.
talking to HAL 9000. So, we'll see if we can actually pull that off. But what happened was I started to go down the rabbit hole once again because there were two new big announcements this week on AI. The new ChatGPT's out, ChatGPT O. I think it's Omni or something like this. And then Google, the very next day, announced a bunch of updates to their AI. And so you and I have been playing around with AI basically every day, and I'm still trying to
Mhm.
figure out some use cases. So I said, okay, how would I go about developing HAL 9000 in real life, given that I already have the CAD model and I'm trying to figure out the software and hardware side of this? And
Mhm.
ChatGPT spit out a blueprint. And I am going to continue to just go through this blueprint and ask it the question after question after question. I'm going to use AI as my tutor to direct me in every single step of the process to try to build a working HAL 9000. And hopefully that will also become a video. Actually, let's say it will
Oh,
become a video, whether we
yeah.
succeed or fail. I think the interesting
Yes.
thing is going to be how exactly do we go about this? But I have had
And
my
this and
mind.
I really like the frame. I really like the frame of this where, like, I don't know very much about coding. I know a little bit, like the actual electronics hardware I can get around, but implementing like Arduino and Raspberry Pi and Python and Java, I don't really know that well. Josh, you know significantly more than
And
me.
I also don't know it well. So I know more
Yeah,
than you, but I
but
don't know this stuff well.
I think the interesting lens is we both know a little. We both know that we don't know a lot, which I think is really critical. And that is, well, okay, just how far can we actually get into this process with with an AI tutor, If I have this fantastic amazing project, I want to be able to talk to a movie character and have them talk back to me and then actually put this in an enclosure. That's not
So
easy at
imagine
all.
a history lesson, Jake, where the history lesson is you having a conversation with George Washington
That
in the
sounds
voice
fantastic.
of George
Well,
Washington. And you get to go, hey, George, like, how do you feel really about this new republic that you founded? Right. I think that, man, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun to think about that than going and sitting in a history class with like a boring lecture. You're
Mm.
like, just bring it to life. Like this is
I think
cool.
it could be
So
really rad. Yeah. So I'm really excited for that. And we're planning on bringing it to open source in some vehicle, whether it's just kind of strapped to my backpack. Who knows?
yeah,
But that
maybe
should be
it's like
really
one of
fun.
those yak backs. You remember these things where you could just record something and press the button and it
Oh
would
my
say it
god,
back, right?
I haven't seen
So
Yak Back in so long.
we're gonna bring it in whatever form we're able to get it to. So I'm gonna be like trying
With
and pushing as
wires
hard as I
dangling from it.
can to get it actually working. But you're gonna have to see what happens. How does it actually work? And I think the point also is like, how far can we push these AI tools? And so, Jake, I think that leads to something else that we wanted to talk about today, and that is because of these announcements with new AI tools and our playing around with them and rediscovering some of the utility of them. I went in and tried something with the new GPT 4.0, which
Mhm.
is I went into Fusion. I
Which
opened
is
up,
not 4.0, just to make that
yeah,
clear.
for
That's been
Omni or
around for a
something
few
like this.
months.
So I went into ChatGPT 4.0 for Omni and took a photo of my screen in Fusion 360. I had a simple block with two holes. And I said, hey, ChatGPT, with this photo, can you help me understand how to make some text on the top face? I want some raised text on the top face. And it not only knew that I was using Fusion 360 and referenced it, but then gave me a step-by-step guide, including the menus that I needed to scroll into and navigate into and exactly how to do it. And I'm like, this is amazing.
That's
So if
kinda
you're in the
wild.
chat now, if you're listening to the pod, if you're on here, I encourage you, open up Fusion 360. The next time you have a question about how to do something and you're stuck, take a photo or a screenshot of it and ask ChatGPT and find out what happens. I know I believe ChatGPT 4.0 is actually free now. I think they provide
Alright.
access to that for free. Part of their thing is like they want to have open access, free access to this for everybody.
Yeah.
So but yeah, start to think about using ChatGPT as your personal tutor. By the way, not just in CAD, but in everything that you do.
Mm.
And I
I'm
want to
really
see,
excited to see where this goes, 'cause I
I
think
want
that
to,
is significantly better of an application than give me this really complex, complicated model, and then it actually makes it. I think taking a picture of your screen and going, "I'm stuck. This is my end goal. What do I need to do next?" That's gigantic.
that's
That's
huge.
huge.
That's huge. And for unsticking, and Jake, you and I use it for brainstorming. We use it for outlines. We use it for idea
Mhm.
generation. We use it for image generation. We use it to unstick ourselves. And like literally every single day, we're using these tools. So if you're listening and you're here and you're part of this CAD world and you're technical, which you all are, you got to be using this stuff every day. You really
Yeah,
do.
it's
You're
amazing.
falling behind if you're not using it. And the second application is something that's actually going to change in the future update of our book, Jake. So do you want to show off maybe a really simple model in?
Well, I just a framing really quick.
Yep.
So I think we've all seen the DALL-E images where people are putting in descriptions and then it pumps out an image, and it used to be very kind of trippy, acidy, kind of what I'm talking about, but not actually very realistic. And then obviously after a year goes by, it's amazingly better. And we were kind of playing around with this idea, and in our new TinkerCAD book, we found that there's this really fantastically easy AI website where you basically just pull in a model of like an isometric view, and it makes it incredibly realistic from a CAD model or a screenshot of a CAD model to actually having background and textures and correct lighting and shadows with context and props. I'm like, oh my god, this is fantastic. And so going from that from the rendering portion is absolutely fantastic. And there seems to be a really good balancing point that we're going to talk about both. So the rendering workspace, you can take your model, put it in there, you can change the background, the lighting, the this and that, you can add in props. Really fantastic. You've got a huge amount of control to it, and you can move around your model and your lights. That's great. It is incredibly precise and it can do whatever you want it to do, but you have to do all of those things. That's where it gets to be a little bit more of a pain. And so the ability to say, well, I just want kind of AI to make it look, 90% of the way there, and that's going to be fine for me. That's what it's used for. So obviously going to go staying in depth and showing off all the projects, say, hey, this is exactly what you can do. This is how you use this program. The point of AI is not to say, hey, you now never need to use this workshop ever again. It's to say, hey, here's an additional tool that's outside of the program that you can use to help your project. And I think that is the way to go. So, as a quick example, we grabbed the pizza cutter from the joints chapter, I think chapter 7. Very, very simple. It's not a rendering project, but it's got wood and stainless steel and a blade, all that good stuff. We kind of know what it looks like. And I just plugged it in and just gave it a very, very simple description. So let me go ahead and share this.
So, and this tool, by the way, for those of you who are just listening, is called NewArc, A-R-C dot AI. They have some free functionality here. So go ahead and click that image, Jake.
So this was the original image right here. Pretty simple, nothing too exciting. Literally just a screen grab from the program. And then afterwards, it's added in all of this texture. It's actually added props, backgrounds, all this stuff, all the actual shimmeringness to it.
An undercooked pizza with cheese.
Yeah, I know. I didn't do exactly what I wanted.
Still,
I was like, cool. Oh yeah, put it in Italy in a plaza cutting a pizza, and it's like, white background? How about a white background? That's even better. So I think there's probably, in fact, it's fairly obvious there is the little dial down here where you can say, oh, I want it to be even more creative. So that was at a 5 right in the middle. What happens if I bump it up to a 9 for creativity? I think this will get a little trippier. What has this done? Come on. And then obviously you can upgrade to remove all of the watermarks on it, and you can probably get more accurate parts out of it. But
oh wow, hey, that pizza looks better. It's got I like the little chunk of pizza on the blade.
This actually looks way more accurate. So okay,
this is a beautiful. Look at the handle. Wow.
God, yeah.
The handle's
lovely
really
wood. It's actually got an emblem put in on it. The metal looks far more accurate. The pizza looks better. There's crumbs on the table. There's an actual surface on it. I don't know why it put a pizza on the axle.
There's probably also, so this is NewArc.ai, but there's honestly probably this exact same functionality in DALL-E. As well as like all the other image generation things. I think the point here is that you can very quickly render objects in environments that you imagine them to be in. Even if the render isn't perfect, this is like, what a powerful tool for unsticking.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and if you were to try to render something like this in Fusion, how long do you think that would take, Jake?
Well, I mean, first off, you'd have to make the actual pizza itself down here to actually get all this wood grain. God, you'd have to make a custom appearance for that. Probably a few hours, if I'm being honest. If I'm really, really kicking ass and working hard. Yeah, probably a couple hours.
So imagine you're working with a client, you're trying to show off something you've made, you design something extremely simple and quick in Fusion, and then you want to show them what it might look like in the real world. You could generate 10, 20, 30 of these in a couple of minutes. And then you could say, is this what you imagine? Is this what you imagine? Is this what you imagine? So again, just one small example of a workflow that I think goes from 2 hours to 5 seconds. Not perfectly, but let's call it like 70, 80% of the way there. And that's interesting enough for a lot of use cases.
I kind of want to do one of these live just to kind of literally show people the process.
So you know what we did? Easy. So what we did with Ed really quickly was we rendered a watch. So we just created a really simple watch frame with like 2 or 3 primitive shapes and a couple tapers, and we had it render some watches, and it was pretty freaking epic.
So I want to actually do one of the projects from our programs.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. So which project do we want to do, dude?
Let's do what's the most interesting.
They're all interesting, obviously. I think we should probably do. I kind of want to see the HAL or the AI villain, excuse me.
Okay.
Do HAL to see if it can actually do that.
So you're gonna just pull up HAL, or you're gonna make HAL from? Okay, you're gonna pull.
Oh God, no!
I was like, are we talking about making this from scratch? This is impressive.
No.
Okay, no.
Definitely not. All right, so this is with all of the actual colored lighting beams that I actually don't need. So let me do that. So let me turn off the grid because that's going to mess with the image. Do you want to time me actually? Because this will just take no time at all.
You're at the 40-minute mark right now. So just to for context here, we're at 40 minutes on the live stream.
All right, so I'm just going to do capture on that. Let me go to here, delete that, pull this in. Boom. What's my prompt?
What is your prompt? Tell me what you're typing.
I'm going to put Hal in the end scene of 2001: Space Odyssey, which is very, very trippy, very, very trippy, and no one actually really knows what it means apparently. And I'm going to give it 9 out of 10 for creativity. Let's see what it does with this.
This is going to be interesting.
This is going to be ridiculous.
It might not like it. It might not like it. We'll see.
I don't know.
I guess we'll find out.
For anyone who hasn't seen 2000 or who has seen 2001: Space Odyssey, you know exactly what I mean. The very, very weird ending. That apparently Kubrick said.
And PCV. Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Whoa. How Odyssey? How Odyssey?
How Odyssey? That's
okay,
really trippy.
Look at that. That's like, whoa.
Weird.
It's weird that it put it on.
I know.
So PC Van Vliet said use ChatGPT for the prompt. Yeah, that's not a bad idea either. So anyways, the point here is that there's a lot of different ways to use these tools. And in a couple of seconds, you've generated at least something interesting. That's, whoa.
Yeah. Or at least something where you can go,
that's
I actually want to change it.
Look at the way they incorporated it. Whoa.
Really bizarre.
Really bizarre.
Really quick, I think I've said this before. If you're into movies and props and all that stuff, if you ever make your way down to Los Angeles on vacation, or if you live in California, I cannot recommend going to the Academy Museum enough. It is a compendium of every single famous movie prop you've ever seen in your entire life. There was things from Star Wars, things from E.T., Blade Runner, 2001. They have original claymation stuff from 100 years ago. Amazing museum. I spent 7 hours there. They had one of the not one of the originals, but from the prequels, an R2D2, and I took, I think, 250 reference photos of it, and I was in tears, man. And apparently one of the security guards was chatting with my fiance, where she's like, "Is everyone like this?" And he goes, "Yeah, there's about one guy a day comes up and he's just in tears and he's wiping some tears, looking at R2D2." But yeah. Anyway. So that is definitely going to be in an edition on the second edition of the book, where it is saying, hey, you have all these fantastic rendering tools, but then there's also significantly more out there. So if you want to have fast, snappy, where you don't have a ton of control and may give you perfect results, like that second pizza cutter thing, or may give you something interesting but not what you're looking for, then AI is there. So it's a bit of a gamble in my mind, but obviously leaning towards fantastic projects. But I want to continue on to finish off this pod.
On the docket.
Last on the docket is
360.
all of the May updates to Fusion. So not every month, about every month and a half, 2 months, Fusion puts out an article and a video saying, hey, here's all the upgrades and here's all the new tools, fixes, etc. that they've made. And they put one out for May. There's actually a bunch to the design workspace, which means more work for us, but that's fine because then we get to introduce all these new tools to you guys later on. They usually do huge upgrades to the CNC workspace, the electronics workspace, the drawing workspace. But they did a bunch, like 5 brand new tools to the design workspace. I played around with some of them. Some of them are genuinely useful. Some of them are okay. And then some of them, I don't know the use case. I'm not sure I understand it. So I wanted to show you guys the 4 tools live, and kind of get your input, especially you, Josh. So I want you to see, like, oh no, that's actually fantastic. Maybe I'm just messing it up. I don't know. But that's the idea. So the first one that I wanted to show off is one of those that's like, yeah, okay, great, cool. So if you started off with a blank workspace, I'll just bring my grid back. If you start off with just a blank file like normal, and you wanted to insert a file from your data panel, let's say I wanted to put the grill into this file, you would right-click it and then say insert into current design. Apparently that was a little hard to find, and so if you go into the insert menu in the top right, you can now click Insert Component, and you can just go through your data panel and click and pull it in. Great, cool, very exciting, fantastic. The other thing that I think is actually a little bit more useful is that every time you make a new component, it will immediately ground that component. Grounding is now more complicated. I don't know why it needed to be more complicated, but it is. So if I just make a new component, I'm just going to leave it as component one. I'm just going to make a box and click OK. Do you guys see in next to component, there is the white cube, which means component, but there's now a little anchor next to it. That is because this file that I just made is automatically grounded. It is locked in place. Now, anytime you think about grounding, you have to think about the anchor icon. So before, this was just, I made a component and it lives in the universe, therefore I can click and drag it. Not so the case. Most of the time, the first component that you make, you need to ground it anyway, so then you can add joints to it. So that's great. It automatically did that. Now, if I make another component, oops, if I activate this top one, if I make a brand new component, again, it's just going to be a rando box. It's really quick, yada, yada, yada. This is now just a normal component that can be clicked and moved around. Fantastic. That's fine. So now if I wanted to, I could add a joint between all these sections to over here. That's fine. Moves it along. And everyone's happy. I now have rigid joints. Now both of them are locked into place. Okay. Everyone's with me, right? If you wanted to ground this one, you can right-click this component and say ground to parent. Now there is a connection between the this component you just made and the assembly. And now any movement that you did, so I remember I moved this from over here to up there, that is now reverted back to the original location where I sketched it, and that is now locked into place. So any movement that you would normally see as a capture this position, that is now deleted and reverted back to here. If you didn't want to do that and you just want to say, hey, stay there, then you right click it and that is now called pinning. So this is where we have that capture position or revert position. So this is still locked in place. I'm trying to click and move it. And if you wanted to, you could then unground this component and then repin it to lock that in place. So now essentially we have two tools that do basically the exact same thing, and one of the words has been flipped and a new one has been added. And the functionality of grounding is that it's not, I don't see the usefulness in it. I see how it's super duper useful to lock down and ground the first thing that you made as a default. That's great. I love that. I'm not sure I understand the purpose for pinning as a separate thing to grounding. I don't know why reverting it back to the original location makes it any better. I don't know. So if someone in the chat wants to play around with this and they find something that I'm not, then absolutely do it and let us know on the Discord. But yeah, a little funky. But can you think of anything, any reason, Josh?
No.
Or any?
No.
Yeah,
Nothing off the top of my
funky.
head. Yeah, I'm
Really
not sure.
funky. The other thing that was they do in addition to adding new tools is also adding new functionality to other tools as well. So they did add something to the shelling tool, which I haven't actually used yet. So if I'm just going to make a very simple set of like stacked cylinders, just to have something to actually shell. Yeah, there we go, cool. And I'll do one last one. So before, anytime that you do a shelling operation, never mind. Two's fine. Anytime that you do a shelling operation, obviously it cuts it out. The outer edges are then mapped onto the inside. But they've now added in a shell feature where instead of just sharp corners, it actually adds a rounded shell to it. So if I was to click on this top surface and that bottom surface and say, yeah, give me inside thickness of 1 millimeters, and click OK, it is now mapping that sharp outer edge and putting it on the inside as well. But if I go back into that shell tool, you can see that I can actually now round it. So now this inside radius is added. And it's, I guess, the radius of the shell as well, but it doesn't then add it to the outside. So if I do a section analysis on it, then you can see it's cut. It isn't now an even shell. It would then be cutting out slightly less material from the inside. So, and it only does that to external corners, not to internal corners. So, I I don't know. I don't know. This is a weird one. I'm not 100% sure why. Again, why this is necessary? Cool, but it's not. I I don't understand why it's useful. I'm sure there's a reason. That's perfectly fine. But it just seems like if you wanted to do this, then you could just do the fillet, right? Oh, no, that's right. You can't show the outside. So yeah, cool. It's there, I guess. If you wanted to use this as a tool, there you go. But yeah,
Very convinced. If
I don't get it. I get it. But the last thing is actually something that is actually very interesting, and I'm curious to see what applications there are of it. And that is that there is now a new addition to sweeping. So the idea with sweeping is that you have a profile, for example, a circle and a path like a coil, and then you can send that profile along the path and you can make a 3D object. That's cool. So if you have a circle, trace it along a coil, you now have a spring. If you have a hexagon that you sweep along an L shape, you now have an Allen key. Cool. Everyone's good with that. So that has always been taking a profile to sweep, and now you can do a solid sweep. So you can sweep a 3D object along a path. Cool. Which well, yeah, which really weirded me out. So I'm just going to do a little quick example that I did. That I was like, okay, it does in fact work. Again, I'm not 1,000,000,000% sure what the application is, but I'm sure someone will find some rad version of it, and I will look dumb in a week, if that. So I'm fine with that. All right, so I've just made a 3D object, which is essentially a puck that's got 2 cutouts on either side. That's going to be my body that I'm going to sweep along a path. So let me go ahead and make a path right now. I'm just going to make a line, goes out, click and hold, and then continues off on a tangent arc. Cool. We'll just add on some constraints. Groovy. Okay. So the idea with this is that now you can have any of the, if I change this over to solid sweep, you can now select this body and then select that path. And now that little divot that was just on the other side is now swept. So it's essentially taking that information, cutting it in half, and then elongating it along a path, which very, very interesting, very cool. But the example that they have on their updates is like a really complicated gear profile that it looks like they just extruded. And I'm like, that's not a path. I mean, it is a sweep, but it's just a sweep along just a line is an extrusion. That's the that's the same thing. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not sure. Yeah, again, seems interesting, but they didn't provide any real world examples of where you would use it. Therefore, I don't know if it's useful enough and then useful to put in our book to educate you guys about it, or if it's just another tool that just so happens to exist. I don't know. So there you go. Those are all of the more pertinent design features. There's a couple extras, but nothing too exciting. But yeah.
Derry does have a question for us. He said, if we have time, I posted a question to the general section on Discord.
Ooh.
And Joe Street already pointed me in the right direction, but it would be great to get Jake's take on how to draw something like that. So he's got in the general discussion there in Discord, up a couple days. He has a cover for a bicycle controller that he's working on right there. So the question, you want to read that question out loud? So the question is, or I'll read it out loud. I was asked to create a cover for this bicycle controller. The leads are too bright, or the LEDs are too bright at night. How would you go about creating the complex curvature of this controller? I tried using the spline tool, but I end up with all kinds of extra curves. Perhaps there's a smarter way of doing this.
I completely agree. So I'm seeing a little bow on the top and bottom of this part. I would agree with Joe Street. What you'd want to do, what you actually did perfectly, is you took a picture with a ruler. So you can use that to calibrate the size of your canvas. So I would take this picture, pull it into Fusion, and then actually use that with some splines to trace around it, and then you can adjust it. Because this is a manufactured part, you can actually infer a little bit of information that it's symmetric, top, bottom, left, and right. So you actually only need to use the spline to make like the top right corner of it, and then mirror it top and bottom to get the entire thing. The tricky thing with splines that doesn't seem intuitive is that everyone always comes into it and goes, I'm going to add as many points as possible because I want it to be as accurate as possible, because that kind of makes sense. Unfortunately, that adds so many points of interest that it means your spline, your mathematical curve that passes through all those points, gets so out of whack that it ends up blowing up, essentially. Like in between 2 points that are right next to each other that you think are just going to form a nice little arc, and then continue on. It gets really, really strange. The best thing you can do with splines is add in as few points as possible. Like for a complicated shape, 4 points maximum, 5 points, we'll probably get away with it. If you want to check out the electric guitar project that we do in the chapter 8 for Cam, that's where we take an image and then we trace around it, and it is very iterative. So do not stop after just one go. Restart back at the top, maneuver, maneuver, maneuver all the way along. That is the way to go for it. And then screw it through. And if you want to dim the LEDs, just put a bit of tape over it. Put a bit of masking tape on it. That's the other things. I crack it open, put a little bit of paper on the inside, make it a little bit opaque, and then put it back together. Not everything needs to be 3D printed. If you do want to make it, that's probably the way to go. But there's other ways to do it. That's all right though.
Love it. Love it. Well, Jake, I think that's all we got.
I think that's all we got, guys.
Hey, this has been the CADclass podcast. Once again, I'm Josh.
I'm Jake.
And we will see you all next week.
See you guys.